Welcome back to AirbusDirect at Singapore Airshow. It's day 2. The star of the show, our A350 test aircraft, is on Airbus's static display, and it's attracting hundreds of visitors keen to see it up close. Today, the A350 performed its second and last flying display here at the Singapore Airshow, and we've had loads of feedback from viewers and visitors alike, telling us how incredibly quiet the aircraft is during both the slow and faster passes. The other big buzz of the day were exciting announcements with partners for new business developments in Asia to serve our customers ever better. We signed a training joint venture with Singapore Airlines, and we announced a new Airbus ProSky office and a new Airbus SATA service centre for spare parts distribution across the region. But the temperature really went up when we announced the firm order with Amedeo for 20 A380s. Welcome Tom Williams, Airbus Executive Vice President Programs, and Kiran Rao, Airbus Executive Vice President Strategy and Marketing.
Thank you.
Kiran, today the big news was for our big plane. Great news from Singapore. First home to the A380. Kiran, could you tell us a little bit more about Amedeo?
So yeah, it's the fantastic news today. The A380 is a great success in Asia. The A380 is an airplane that of course fulfills all the needs of the passengers and of course the growth that we see in this very vibrant market. Amedeo is the third largest by value leasing company in the world. They currently own 18 A380s and they do that through a sale and leaseback mechanism. Today Amedeo has decided that they don't have to do a sale and leasebacks, they can do a speculative order for 20 A380s, and that's just wonderful because when we look at the market for the A380 going forward, we see that airlines, not just the large airlines like Singapore, Malaysia and Thai in this region, but even some of the smaller airlines can now have the opportunity to go into the A380.
So let's have a look now at what Mark Lapidus, CEO of Amedeo, has to say and why he's investing in the A380.
We see A380 as an essential aircraft for future aviation. Growth is simply too great, too fast to be able to accommodate traveling public without this large aircraft. It offers best economics for airlines in terms of both revenues and costs in operating this aircraft in the future.
Today, more than half the long-haul traffic in the world goes between just 42 megacities. These are cities that have more than 10,000 passengers long-haul each day. In 20 years' time, there'll be 89 such megacities, most of them in Asia-Pacific.
Large trunk routes are growing faster than anything else in the world. People are traveling more and more, so A380 is a solution that's coming. And on top of that, it's an aircraft that provides unbeatable product compared to anything else that flies today, and at unbeatable economics for airlines that will operate it.
Kiran, we're here in Singapore, right at the heart of Asia, the fastest growing market for Airbus. Can you tell us how you see the market evolving here for us?
So over the next 20 years, we believe that in Asia, in Pacific, we would see about 11,000 new aeroplanes being purchased. Of the 11,000 aeroplanes, about 4,000 of those aircraft will be our wide-body airplanes. If we look at the type of aircraft that we sell in Asia, it's the A380. We have all the major airlines in this region flying the aircraft. We have the A350, which is our latest airplane, the A330s, and of course we have the A320, which is the stable of all the low-cost airlines. 90% of all airlines last year selected the A320 for their low-cost operations in this region. 80% of all aircraft bought in this region were from Airbus last year. If we look at the individual airplanes, the A380 satisfies the demand where the growth rate is 5.8% per annum. So every 15 years the market doubles. And in those 15 years the number of airports do not double, and therefore the A380 is the right size aircraft with the right economics, the right comfort levels that matches the demands of the passengers and the airlines that have bought the aircraft. The A330 is the regional workhorse, but we've developed the A330, we've made it a long-range version, and we've also made a regional domestic version as well. So the A330 now is much more versatile, meeting more requirements of the airlines in the region. The A350, which you've seen flying here at the Airshow, is our latest wide-body aircraft, And that'll be a long-haul aeroplane in 3 different sizes, matching the needs for short, medium, long-range operations, as well as the different sizes from 250 to 350 passengers. All these aircraft have the lowest economics, operating costs. They have the best comfort, and that's why they're so successful in today's marketplace.
Thank you, Kiran. And Tom, may I ask you, with all these orders and all this demand that Kiran's just told us about, what are we doing at Airbus to increase our footprint in the region to support our customers?
Yeah, it's great news in terms of the growth. On the other hand, we've got to make sure that that growth is achieved in a safe and successful way. And so we've got to be looking at a number of priorities. If we think of a low-cost airline perhaps ordering 100 single-aisle aircraft, that means they're probably going to have to generate training for about 1,000 pilots. So we think it's very important to have regional-based training close to the customers. And that's why we're delighted today to announce the launch of a new joint venture in training, which will be based here in Singapore. It'll be majority owned by Airbus, but with a very strong ownership from Singapore Airlines as well. And I think brings together 2 very successful brands. Our training expertise combined with Singapore Airlines operating expertise, I think will be able to provide unmatchable quality of training in the area. I think the other thing we're very pleased is tonight we're going to go and open a new facility over at Seletor, which will be branded under our Satir logo, and that will be responsible for parts distribution for this region, and that will be both for Satir parts and for Airbus parts. So that's another example of us providing local support in the area, close to the customer, being responsive to the customer's needs. And also on the MRO side, we have a joint venture in Malaysia for 320 maintenance and repair, and that's a very successful facility, and again shows that we can provide C-check capability close to our customers in the Asia region. So it's all part of our focus on being much more Asia-centric in the way we support customers in the future.
Thank you, Tom. So talking about being Asia-centric, we'll now have a look at what the market will look like here in Asia over the next 20 years.
In 20 years' time, more than 1/3 of passengers will come to and from the Asia-Pacific region. This strong growth in passenger traffic is of course going to lead to a strong growth in the demand for new aircraft. Across the Asia-Pacific region, we will see a demand for more than 10,600 new aircraft in the next 20 years. Of these, 6,800 will be single-aisle aircraft. Around 2,200 will be small to medium-sized wide-body aircraft, and around 1,600 will be large wide-body aircraft. Asia-Pacific contains many emerging markets with growth rates that are much higher than the world average. In intra-Asia, the growth rate over the next 20 years will be 6.1% per annum. In domestic China, it will be 7% per annum. In fact, in 20 years' time, we will see more than 4 times as many Chinese people flying as we do today. Think about that. In India, 5 times as many people will fly as they do today. Obviously, catering for all the traffic growth that we're going to see in Asia doesn't just require aircraft. It sets out challenges for infrastructure, for airports, for air traffic control in particular. And even with the continuing trend to put bigger aircraft between markets, we still need to ensure that the air traffic control system is able to operate more and more efficiently.
Welcome, Paul-Franck Bijou, Airbus ProSky Chief Executive Officer.
Hello, Marcella. Hello,
Before talking to you, Paul-Franck, I'd like to come back to Kiran for a moment and ask him to explain all this growth and all this demand. Can you tell us a bit what's driving it here in Asia?
So Marcella, there's a very close correlation between GDP and air traffic growth. So if we look around the region between India, China and the rest of Asia, on average we see that the GDPs are growing by about 5%. If we compare that with the US or with Europe, that's a tremendous increase in growth. If we look at China on its own, 7, 8, 9% growth in GDP. So the traffic tends to be twice that of the GDP growth. So if we put the rate at which these economies are growing and the fact that a lot of these new travelers are first-time travelers, the propensity to travel is very high in this region. So if we put all of that together, the new low-cost airlines in the region are driving the growth and the demand for the A320. The wide bodies are satisfying the regional growth, and aircraft like the A350 and the A380 are satisfying the long-haul market growth into the region. So with the trade between Europe and Asia, the trade between Asia and the United States, and the growth rates that we have, putting all that together, that's why we see that there's a demand for about 11,000 aeroplanes in this region over the next 20 years.
So Paul-Franck, over to you now. Again, we're going to see increasing numbers of aircraft apparently in Asia. So can you tell us a little bit about how air traffic management is going to cope?
Well, first of all, thank you, Marcella. You're very right in stressing this high number of aircraft going to be delivered in the coming years. This is indeed the fastest growing market, as we know. So I think that the Asian air traffic management system will face basically two major challenges, let's say. One is to increase the capacity on the major hubs, and the other one is to have a regional approach, because unlike the US, for example, or Europe, these countries are all different countries, and the big challenge will be to get a regional approach, like regional air traffic flow management, for example. So now there's probably the question about what we can do about it and how Airbus and Airbus ProSky can support. So with regards to hub and big airport capacity, for example, we have a set of, I think, very efficient tools like ILS simulation models that we use for the A380 and we use for other aircraft now. A concept called follow the greens. I love this one. You land on the aircraft just like in Seoul, which it's live in Seoul, and instead of having a complex route, etc., the controller just tells you follow the green and you report at the gate. So that's very easy. It really reduces the ground movement and increases the capacity. So this is a number of tools that you can use to increase capacity. And the other one is about regional air traffic flow management, which is what we're doing in Singapore, for example.
So Paul-Franck, can you explain to us a little bit more the concept that you've developed in Singapore with the authorities?
Sure. So if we take the example of Singapore, Singapore is very special actually, because as soon as you take off from Singapore, after a few minutes, you're out of Singapore airspace. So this thing is very, very special. So now if you want to balance capacity and demand, which is the point of air traffic flow management, you have to have an agreement with neighbor countries. There's no point in doing air traffic flow management in Singapore, having slots here, and not in Kuala, in Jakarta, in Hong Kong, and so on. So the study that we've been doing with Singapore is about how to set relevant rules across the borders that help you to have a fair slot system among the region and not just in Singapore. And this is very new, very specific to this region, and very new.
Thank you, Paul-Franck, and thank you, Kiran. So we'll wrap up today's Airbus Direct at Singapore with a few fresh images of really the star of the show, our A350. Thank you everyone for watching us, and we'll see you here again tomorrow at 5 p.m. on airbus.com.